right. Hey, what's up, everybody? This is the virtually made Fireside Chat. This is a new series that we're going to be doing, give you guys some project updates, talk about what we're working on, also just talk about some things going on in the market, and we'll definitely end every segment with a wellness tip. Today, we got the infamous Gub Jub joining us. Gub, how's it going?
Doing pretty good, my friend. How you doing?
I'm doing good, man. You ready to talk about some CNFT stuff?
Man, I have been talking about CNFT stuff nonstop on my Twitter. It has been ridiculous. I am absolutely ready.
That was a rhetorical question. I already knew the answer to that. Uh, all right, well, let's start off by talking about the farmers market. So farmers market is tomorrow, Saturday, April 16th. We got Big PT. He is coming in with the bangers, he said. So we're gonna hear a lot of the classics. Any good Charlotte fans out there, I think you're gonna like this one. I love watching him play good Charlotte songs just because you can just tell how comfortable he is playing them. And we have some super dope guests. We got Cardano Jer, we got Ada Ape Society, Yummy Universe, the Yetis. Who are you most excited to see, Gub?
Oh man, I'm not going to choose a project that I've been involved with. I'm actually interested to hear more about Yumi. It's a project that I ignored early on and have kind of like waffled back and forth on increasing my holdings there. I hear there's some really good things going on, so I'm really excited to hear more about Yumi.
Yeah, it's funny because every time we do these, like obviously we talk to the creators, but I learned so much about the projects during our 15-minute interviews. And in terms of like our other guests, I think we have about 50 other projects. We got our dope banner out here, as you guys could see. A lot of cool stuff, man. I've been clicking in through their channels. We kind of got like the little sneak
Yeah, too.
peeks. Yeah, I mean you might be able to see them there, but we've had some pretty good sized projects come out of our farmers market, and this is our third one, so it's gonna be a lot of fun. If you guys are not doing anything tomorrow, it's at 12 o'clock Pacific Standard Time. I think that's 8 o'clock UTC. I get really confused with the time zones and all that. But yeah, check us out. It should be a really good time. It's always a lot of fun, and the whole point of it, we just want to make this fun. We want to make the CNFT community enjoyable. It's, obviously people are in it for the profit and money and all that stuff, but I think a big part of it is just enjoying yourself and having a good time.
Oh yeah, community for sure is a big portion of why I'm in CNFT projects that I'm in. Beyond our headliners of Cardano, Jer, Yumi, the Ape Society, Smooth Yetis, we have some pretty big names in the other projects that are at the farmers market. We have Bizarre Stars in there. We have Emerald Dow. Galactico, which is I love that art of the Galactico project. Um, what else? I saw some other things here. There's a lot.
Mystic Monks, I
Oh
love their
yeah, Mystic
art.
Monk,
Yeah, the
Teddy Troop,
teddies.
Raging Teens Clan too. So yeah,
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
definitely like it's great to see all the NFTs come out and support each other, and like they're there. Like there are all the channels are already set up, so you can stop by anytime and start talking to these people. They're wonderful folks.
And like it's a constant complaint I hear about on Twitter too is there's just so many Discord channels because like me and you we
Yeah.
live in Discord so we're kind of used to it, but for normal people it is a lot, so I think just trying to get everybody in one spot really gives a platform. I know the other day I kept getting pings on my Discord and I couldn't find where it was coming from, and it was like I was just going crazy because I just all day just hearing like ping ping ping, and I just
Oh
started
yeah.
unfollowing every Discord I could until the pinging stopped because I was like literally losing my mind, and it was like it wasn't a personal thing. I just wasn't. I was in over 200 Discords,
Oh
which
yeah.
there's no way I'm checking that many. So yeah, I think it's a really cool thing, and um, Big PT slays it every
Oh
time,
yeah.
and yeah, it's gonna be a good set. He showed me the list, and I am hyped. Well, Good Charlotte's one of those bands like most people know them. But until you hear all their hits, you don't realize like they had so many hits. Like there's so many
Oh
songs
yeah,
that you know.
yeah, for sure. I mean, like I can probably name "Lifestyles of the Rich and the Famous," "Dance Floor Anthem," "Girls and Boys," "Hold On,"
Yeah.
uh, "The Anthem," "I Just Want to Live." Like there is so many good songs that Good Charlotte put out. So I'm really excited to see Big PT pull out some of those oldies but goodies. I'm really hoping to hear a few of my favorites.
Oh heck yeah, man. Yeah, it's gonna be dope. So make sure you guys check us out tomorrow. Another thing I want to talk about here we've been working on is the junkies. What
Oh,
uh what are you excited about in the junkies? I know in the background, not everybody's been seeing this, but we've been brewing up some traits. Robot Lim has been on a tear. He just been pumping them out, and we got some funny ones. I was debating. I was like, I don't know if we should tease them out just yet, because they're still in development. But yeah, how excited are you about the junkies, man?
I'm actually really excited. I think that it provides an opportunity for us to show off more of the above ground, right? If you don't know about the Veggiemates IP, basically it's set up in two factions: the Veggiemates and the Junkies. The Veggiemates were forced underground, and so a lot of their traits are look like hand-me-downs or things that you would find scavenging, right? So they don't look as like high tech or modern or cool, but not to say that there aren't awesome traits. There definitely are. Light in the eyes, bling bling, fuck you, everything. Like there is a lot of really cool combinations. But with the junkies, we get to show off a little bit more of like that modern tech, how greens is infused to like power suits and stuff like that. It's really cool. It's more of like what you would expect from like a high tech society of junk food rebels. So it'll be fun.
I love how the greens are integrated in the story, and like the junkies inject the greens and they eat them as power ups. It's gonna be a lot of fun what we could do with them. One thing I will say is we're still brewing up ideas. Like our art is in development, and if anybody out there, you throw an idea in chat and it's good, we'll take that to heart. Like we're very open to try new things. Robot Limb, for anybody who's seen him in action, the guy is just very talented. He
Oh
could
yeah.
pull off so many things. So like the crazy ideas. Actually, a lot of our ideas came from art nights. He even said himself he went back through all our art nights and picked up some
Oh yeah.
traits from them. So the community is actually a part of the development of Junkies. So if anybody's got any ideas out there, don't be shy. Voice them in chat, because the chance of them getting into the series, if it's a good idea, is pretty high actually.
What was the amount? We're looking for 165 or something like that. Unique traits. What
Yeah,
was it?
a hundred
So
sixty ish. Yeah.
so yeah. So like we're really pumping the different traits that we're working on, and I've seen so many good ones that like I'm trying to think of one that I want to tease, and I literally can't think of just one. I guess the one that I was most surprised with was the Illidan body, right, from World of Warcraft, where we were talking about how we could use the tattoos to like look like greens and like it, and he nailed it. It looks so good. So um, that's a verbal tease only. So
Yeah, we could do the
you
very.
know that's fun.
I like the he has got like the witch doctor with like the dead veggies on it. It's just it's kind of
Oh
messed
yeah,
up.
no, there's so many good ones. The whipped cream
Yeah.
mustache,
Oh
like
yeah,
the
yeah.
what's it called from Sonic, Doctor
The
Robotnik
Dr.
mustache.
Robotnik. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that's so good.
Man, yeah. It's gonna be a good one. We got a pretty cool announcement too during the farmers market tomorrow on how we're gonna do the junkies drop. Yeah, I definitely think I've never seen something like this before. So like, just same with the Veggiemates, right? I think it's like very unique concept. Like we've seen, I think there was like a corn project, and maybe there's been some version of it, but I don't think anybody's had this like combination So shout out to like Robot Lim, obviously, for the originality here. But just this whole concept of vegetables versus junkies, it's just so cool to see it come to life. And I think as we get into the comics, the stories that we've been building out, which is something I didn't really have slated to talk about today, but I think that's really where people are going to see how much fun we can have with this. I remember from day one, you were hitting me up with a billion ideas
Oh yeah,
of the Veggie Mates versus Junkies.
yeah. I mean, it's just a very expansive concept, and it's a very relatable one, right? Like people struggle to find the balance between eating healthy versus eating unhealthy, right? Because a lot of times in today's world, convenience is king. And
Mm-hmm.
so I love the idea of using these types of food groups and creating excitement and buzz around like the characters that are represented by these things. But just the idea of like a food fight, right? Like it was a very interesting concept, and there's a lot of things that you could do with that. And so I latched onto it immediately. I That's why I sat in Discord and minted one at a time on stream and hung out with like 50 to 60 people just watching me mint, because it was just a project that I really understood and liked. And so I'm really excited to see how our ideas that we've talked about and the storyboards we've come up with get translated by Robot Limb and brought to life through our scripts, right? Like it's going to be really cool to see the general market's perception shift from this is a project about vegetables to this is a project about badass anti-heroes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, dude. It's gonna be sick. And also, right around the same time, we have our greens token that's gonna drop in Q2, and we'll talk a little bit more about some of the legal hurdles that we've had to go through. Um, but timing is going to be pretty close on the greens token. So along with having the second IP of the Junkies, which honestly I think a lot of people are looking forward to, having the comic book and bringing these characters to life. We have a utility token coming out at the same time. And so it's going to be very interesting because I think at least the way the space works, I'm curious to get your opinion here. Regardless if people are saying they're in projects for utility, we're still kind of in this profile picture phase where everybody is really geared towards profile pictures. And I do believe very firmly long term utility will rule because um, it, you can only have so many profile pictures, and there's only so many different iterations of them. And it's not to say like profile picture projects are a bad thing. I just think in terms of long-term sustainability, in terms of creativeness, when it comes to utility, you can do so much more when you go beyond just the picture, right? And so, in addition to us having that second IP, having those new profile pictures, the Greens token is going to come out. It's going to start launching the ecosystem, and that's going to turn into like our comics. One thing people don't really know about, we've been pretty quiet about, is Big PT's working on some jams. I don't know
Yeah,
if we should give any. I know you've been pretty excited about that.
yeah, I am excited about it because, like, first of all, it's Big Big T, like one of the best in the business, and I am super excited because the first time we even talked about it, like, I think it was like what 2 hours later, he came back with a track that just
Yeah,
slapped,
yeah,
right? Like, and that's why I'm excited is because our team is interesting. Like we are all individual contributors with our own strengths and weaknesses. Like I have been a quality designer in the game industry for 10 plus years, and I'm helping develop the strategies that we're using for our PTE library of games that we're going to that we have plans to develop. And Big PT has obviously achieved massive amounts of success with Good Charlotte, and just hearing or seeing him work and hearing the final results, it's just mind-boggling because it's true artistry. The same thing with Robot Limbs, Robot Limbs concepts for the junkies and the Veggie Mates, right? And the comics and every illustration that he does at Art Night, right? Like it's just amazing to see like these powerhouses within their own mediums come together to produce multiple streams of content all around this one franchise, right? And so it's just interesting to me, like to see all this come to light and to see like just to see this collection of talent.
And what's awesome is people are getting to do what they love, and they get to put it out in the world, and people find value in that content that's being generated. Like Richard loves drawing. That's his jam, right? I assume you
Yeah,
love games, right? You love building games, you love UI design, story building. I know
yeah,
Big PT, he loves music. He lives music. If you see the background in his studio during the farmers market, he's got every kind of instrument you could think about. And when we hang out, he's almost always got an instrument in his hand. Just when you're
yeah.
talking to him, he just loves playing on them. So, and for me, like I love crypto, I love blockchain, I love tokens, I love animations. Like I'm getting to all these random things that I didn't really understand how I was gonna put together. And what's cool, because when people look at our roadmap, sometimes it's like very aggressive. It's like, man, they're gonna build all that stuff, and I I don't look at it like we have to build all that stuff. I look at it as we get to build all this stuff. And how cool is it to have these different aspects? Because some people are going to be music people, some people are going to be game people, some people are going to be art people. Some people just care about making profit, right? Like there's
Right.
a bunch of different avenues that we're going to cater to, but like at the same time, that's a reflection of the team that we have and where our interests are.
Absolutely, and the to circle it back to the ecosystem, right, and how greens connects everything. Like we have all these different mediums that we can produce with just the team that we have on staff right now, right? Like, what happens as we expand and as we are able to generate more content, right? What happens as Greens turns online and we have the ability to fund the development of interoperability of these NFTs that we're creating, right? So while you're while you're reading a comic book, you can also hear your soundtracks or your PT playlist, right? Like playing in the background, or you can customize which songs you want to hear during your NFT or your P2E experience, right? Like, uh, or customize, which how your characters are represented in the P2E games based on what characters you've collected. There's just so many ways for us to level up the engagement and sense of ownership, and really customization and personal expression of the entertainment experience in large, that
Hmm.
I'm just super excited for those every baby step that we take to get us to that inevitable vision, right? Because really, I think that's the thing that a lot of projects are missing is it's not about the short-term gains. It's not about, you know, how can we add the most amount of value in this moment in time. It's about building towards this greater vision. And I think our greater vision is very, very clear.
Yeah, I have a good analogy for this. So I was doing some glamping couple months ago, and there was a fire pit outside. And when you start a fire off, you got to use a little bit of kindling. You might use a paper bag or whatever. But the goal is to get the logs burning, right? That's what builds coals, and you can't cook with kindling, but you could cook with coal. But the problem with logs is they take a lot to get going. And let's say you got a little fire building up, and you throw a bunch of twigs in there. Actually, I was looking at our neighbor's fire across from us because we're at like a campsite, and they had like this big old fire going, and then a minute later it dies down. And I'm over here trying to build up like my base because I was trying to cook dinner actually. And I threw a paper bag in the fire, and what happened? Poof, big flash, right? Well, it was
Yeah.
gone in seconds. Meanwhile, the logs they're burning, they're turning into coal, and that's what actually sustains in the long run. So it's kind of how I look at this, right? It's like you need a little bit of the hype, you need a little bit of the excitement to get the fire going, but you got to be building the coals, you got to be burning the big logs, and you got to be building those core components because if all you're doing is throwing kindling in there, you're gonna run out of kindling eventually. You're gonna run out of paper bags, right? And even those make a bigger flash, they make a bigger heat wave for that temporary moment. If you need to make dinner, you need to stay warm at night. You ain't gonna do it with a paper bag, you know. And so that's kind of how I look at this long term.
For sure, yeah, I definitely see that. I also like to add on to the metaphor, like you also need to stoke the fire to keep it going, right?
Yep.
Like you need to tend to it. You can't just leave it on its own, right? So, and it's just great to see because a lot of people are expecting these like pop off moonshot growths. In reality, when we're talking about blockchain 20, 30, 50 years from now, it's going to more so mimic what we see in traditional companies and the way they grow and how stocks grow, right? It'll be smaller, more consistent gains and losses, right? Less volatility. And so a lot of people, if a project stays at 80 or, like Crypto Dino, for example, has held 90 ADA, 90 to 100 ADA for 8 months. I don't think people realize how hard that is.
Yeah. It's very very
So,
very hard.
and they've also maintained 3,000 wallet holders. Like that's
Mhm.
crazy. That is blue chip level, right? Because their initial price was 12 ADA. They've held basically an 8x for 8 months. That's nuts.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And I'm a degen at heart. I love quick gains. I love quick flips, right? But my big money is in the stuff I believe in long term. And right now my portfolio, from a stock standpoint, it's taken a dump. But everything I invested in, I believe in 10 years from now.
Yeah, for
So
sure.
it hurts to have the paper losses temporarily sometimes. But as I've gotten older and more mature in my investing, I really don't care as much about it because long term, I know they're gonna do well. I didn't buy these companies to make a quick buck. Now my AMC and GME, I might play those a little bit different than I play my Teslas of the world. Speaking of big logs, one of the ugliest big logs is legality, and I feel like we should have a discussion about this because legal is
Yeah.
just one of those things that it's not sexy. People don't care. Our price isn't gonna double because we went through legal review. um, in
Right.
fact,
Yeah.
in fact, we're emptying our pockets when we're doing legal review. Lawyers are horribly expensive, so
Yeah.
why the hell do we do it? And the bottom line is when you're thinking 5 to 10 years out, you need to put pillars in place that make you sustainable. One of the biggest risks in cryptocurrency, hands down, is regulatory risk. And obviously, there's a lot of stuff going on in the world right now. Crypto keeps catching steam, but it's just a matter of time before the crackdowns happen. And I've talked to a lot of people in the space, and it's funny because everybody thinks they're a lawyer, but none of them have a law degree. And you get legal advice from people who are like, well, I heard if you do this, then you're good to go.
Yeah.
And I early on I was very tempted to be like, oh, all right, that sounds like an easy path. But at a certain point, we had to have the discussion. Okay, are we building a company or are we just trying to make some quick money? Because if we're building a company, does any real company out there not have a legal team? And are they not doing their legal due diligence? And the answer is no, because if you want to get acquired, you want to receive funding, you want to sustain past a couple years, you have to make sure your books are good. You have to make sure that you're doing things above board.
Yeah.
And yeah, and like I will say that we've learned so much through the legal process where we probably screwed up early on, where we could have engaged them a little bit earlier. They're slowing us down. We could deliver more product if we didn't have legal intervention. But when we go back to the log analogy, we're building really strong coal right now.
Right.
And yeah, I'm just so confident the temporary pain of the legal hardships is going to be outweighed in the long term benefits because um, you know if you're not doing things the right way it will catch up one day and ultimately what happens and I think this is where I'm coming from it's not just going to hurt me right like if we get in legal trouble everybody who has invested in our project, all the believers in our project, they're gonna get hurt as well. And like that's where I take responsibility.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like, an analogy that I'm thinking of for this is like, you know, you want to build a house, right? But before you build the house, you put all the furniture where the house is going to be built, and then you build the house. Like, your furniture is going to be destroyed by the time the house is built, right? Like, you can't just put the cart before the horse. You actually have to think logistically, what do we need in order to scale? Like, how are we communicating things, and will that put us in legal issue or legal hot waters, I guess you could say, um, by phrasing something a particular way, right? And so it's okay to ask questions and to get answers and to make more educated investments, um, because legal is coming, the NFT bubble will pop, regulation will hit, and there will be a reckoning. There will be a reset. And the projects that aren't thinking about those things now are the projects that are going to be in the hot waters. Some may be able to pull it off, most won't.
Yeah, and like you said, it's okay to ask the question. Do you guys have a legal team? If any project is guaranteeing you a profit, I know if I did that, my lawyers would strangle me. What we would have to file as a security. Like if anybody's saying, I guarantee you I'm going to make this profit. Somebody asks us that question. What kind of profit are you guaranteeing me? I'm not guaranteeing you anything. Like I'm guaranteeing you that we're going to get the work done. We're going to deliver our content. How everybody determines to value that is up to everybody else. But I'm not going to sit here and tell you, hey, buy this so you can make this much money. And I hear some of that stuff out there. And when I hear that, it makes me cringe honestly because I know without a shadow of a doubt they have not done their legal due diligence and everybody who's following that um I think they're in for a reckoning, honestly. Like, and I'm not gonna
Yeah.
call out any specific projects or anything, but like literally, if somebody's guaranteeing you a profit from a project standpoint, it's one thing if a community member is like, hey, I bought this thing, I think it's gonna go up or whatever. But if a project's like, hey, buy this thing, you'll make this much money by this date, that you should run away from unless they have lawyers and they know stuff that I don't know, which that's totally a possibility. I'd be very surprised though.
Yeah, I mean, it's just protect yourself, right? Because the uh, it, everyone here is out to make a profit. Everyone here is out to collect things that will be valuable long term, right? And that will retain value. And we all want to make it together, but we need to help each other and not fight each other when certain things are sketchy, right? We need to be able to ask questions safely and securely and support the community in getting the answers to those questions and not just shadow ban them or, silence them or troll them. We have to understand that we all have the same goals, right? Whether you're a
Hmm.
project or you're an individual, like, we all want to grow together, and so we need to take that mentality.
Yeah, and it's such a new space that we have to help each other, right? There's a
Yeah.
couple projects I can think off at the top of my head. I've had these discussions with them, like, hey, what are you guys doing for this? How are you going about that? hey, here's what I learned, and understanding it's something important for us all to face, but as a creator, you could really quickly figure out like who the real ones are. By their willingness to listen, but I think more importantly is like their willingness to help each other. And yeah, I think as a community, it is important because ultimately, if we ignore this stuff, the collective is gonna get screwed. Not just the project owners, but like everybody who's a part of that. And then it's a domino effect from there, right? One project who's making these promises, who tends like might be a really big one. Well, they falter. They don't do their due diligence. Then the FUD starts happening. And everybody's like, wait, what about these people? What about those people? And then they start getting scared, and like that could lead to a market collapse, right? That I'm not saying that's the reason the market might have a bubble pop, but like I could see that happening for sure.
I mean, it's not sustainable, the growth that is being experienced in the marketplace, right? We have literally tens to hundreds of new projects every week. It's it's at some point oversaturation is going to kick in. People will be less willing to spend their money on everything and consolidate down into blue chips, A tiers, and B tiers, right? That's just inevitable. We can't just always throw money at everything. No one has infinite amounts of money. Oh, I mean, maybe some people do, but most people don't, right? Um, so yeah,
Yeah. Another big thing going on, a little bit of a different topic, the Clayverse. I I am a huge Clay person. I own 16 Clays, and I it's actually how I got into NFTs. A big part of it was Big PT with his CryptoPunk, and we just always talk crypto. But Clays was like one of the first projects that resonated with me. I love that they're constantly delivering. That they really set the bar for what a quality community is. But they're just like they're very professional about how they do things, and I think like when it comes to this word metaverse, one, it's a subjective term. I don't think it's black and white defined what metaverse is. Is it VR? Is it 3D? Is it just a website? Right? I think we have most of us have an interpretation that it's pretty immersive. But when I think about metaverses, I think one, like, what's the scope? And then two, can I trust this team to execute on it? And for me, I mean, in this space, I can't think of a better team to execute on it, right? So I
yeah,
actually feel pretty good about the Clay Nation metaverse.
yeah. I like the way I feel about Clay is like if Lego came out tomorrow and said we're making a brick first, right? Like I would feel the same way I would feel about Lego doing that as I do Clay, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
Clay to me is a staple. The things that they've done in this space has been fantastic, right? Um, so I'm really excited to see how that goes. But there is a lot of saturation with metaverses, right? Like let's
Yeah.
think, right? Just on Cardano, right? We have the ape metaverse, we have the bear metaverse, we have the Getty metaverse, we have Bosscat metaverse, we have Cardania, we have Pavia, we have Cardano Village, we have Clavers, we have Cornucopias, right? Like that's just 10 I'm rattling off at just the beginning of my list, right? That's not going to happen because a metaverse is more interoperability and connectivity. Now, maybe some of these will partner together and create that interoperability, but if they're all developing in silos and not working together, that's going to be a lot harder to pull off, right? Uh, take it as you will from someone with experience in the industry. Um, I think what we want to see, right, is what we already see in metaverses on Web 2.0 because we already have metaverses on Web 2.0.
Mm-hmm.
We have Fortnite, which is a metaverse, and we have Roblox, both of which are metaverses. So in Roblox, right, like it's really interesting because even though the game is geared towards a younger audience, the interesting portion about it is that it's also a platform for developers to go in and make content in which they can earn money for, right? And so when you think about that, that's the strategy to success for creating a metaverse is you need a way to be able to like create content for it. And if you're not focusing on the content aspect of and the gameplay aspect of a metaverse, then you're really designing something that's social. And I think that's what we're seeing with Clayverse specifically is I think that the way Clayverse will work is going to be more of a social place, a more place for clays to hang out, to do activities, so on and so forth. And that will be great. But then you have to think about like, okay, so what's the other metaverse? The P2E, the play to earn, the learn to earn, right? The actual thing that is going to gamify um, content and participation. And to me, I believe Cornucopias is in the lead there. But there is definitely something to say about Cardania, Pavia, right? Like there are other options there that could slide in and dominate the space. There's just only so much market share to go around that you really need to think about where you're placing your bets on these metaverses.
Yeah, and you know what's funny is you say Cornucopia is at the top of your list. They're very explicit about not calling themselves a metaverse project,
Sure, yeah, they are.
where where they seem to have the experience right from like a developmental standpoint and execution standpoint to actually be poised to be that company. But then you got on the flip side people who use it as a marketing tactic who probably aren't nearly as qualified to develop that, and they're the ones using it advertently. And then I think people, you know, they latch on to buzzwords and they don't really take the
Oh,
time to
absolutely.
think of, well, wait, how are they actually going to build this thing? Wait, who's their team? Wait, have they ever done something like this before? Or are they just literally saying words and giving you pictures? Because uh, I think with you know, if you release a project and it's an art project and that's all it is and that's all you promise, awesome, man. And it's what I tell you know, I've had creators talk to me before and they're kind of struggling with their project and like I don't know what to do right now. It's like if I stop, like is that a rug pull? I was like, well, what did you promise people? What did you tell people what you're gonna do? And if you told them you're gonna do something, then you fucking do it, because that's what you told them you're gonna do. And when
Follow
they
through.
when what's that?
I said you follow through.
You follow through because that's a part of why they invested in your project, right? And so don't make promises you can't keep. And that is one thing that does piss me off as a creator. Because I mean, you know as well as I do how hard this is. It's incredibly hard. And I warn anybody getting into this, hey, I don't know if you want to get into this. This is really hard. If you're gonna go tell people you're gonna build a metaverse, then you better fucking have a development staff, and you better know how to build a metaverse, or you need to have some kind of experience scoping out things. Like, you got to make sure that whatever you think you're gonna do, that you can actually deliver on. And I just don't think that a vast majority of these quote unquote metaverse projects will deliver on their
Yeah,
promises.
absolutely not. But I do see a world in which some of these projects could partner with whatever platform does take the Roblox route, where they surface dev tools and
Yeah,
build content for them. Like that's
I agree.
talking a little bit about our strategy. Like that's kind of where we're at. Is like we're thinking. Our strategy is like we don't want to be the metaverse. We want to be the team providing content for players in a metaverse, right? And we have the skill sets to be able to do that and create awesome experiences. And so that's what we're looking at, right? Our first thing is to work on our own kind of library and the virtually made arcade, which you'll hear more about later. Um, but we're going to eventually get to the point where we want to start integrating our content and making it accessible to people who may not be involved in the NFT scene, but may be playing on a metaverse platform or a game platform, really.
Well, and if you think about it, like, okay, the metaverse is the land, right? So you buy a bunch of land in Oklahoma in the middle of nowhere. Well, if there aren't any people and there aren't any things to do there, then what's the point of it, right?
Right.
So
Yeah,
it,
the difference of living in LA versus the valley, right? Like,
exactly. So I mean, the metaverse is gonna have arcades, movie theaters. It's gonna have forms of entertainment within it, and that's what's gonna bring value to the metaverse. So yeah, that's kind of where our heads at in terms of being an entertainment company is whatever that is, whoever builds it, whatever standards we get in. We just want to make sure that okay, you got all that going. We'll be a part of that. I still believe in metaverse and this virtual world. Like I really do think that's the future. What it is, I
yeah,
don't know yet. But I also know I'm not gonna build it, right? But I want to be a part of it, and I think that at least for us, entertainment is. I know Ugly Bros is another project. Where they're building a bunch of 3D assets, and those are gonna plug into the metaverse. So it's not to say we're the only project out there thinking like this, but yeah, I think you bring up a really good point. It's not just about the metaverse itself, but it's like, okay, well, what do you do in the metaverse? What plugs into it? And that's a big part of where we're at.
and to be honest, a metaverse is the next generation of a social platform.
Yeah.
That's what it is. And that's why Facebook has positioned themselves to be that is because it is exactly what they're already doing. Is what they were why they got involved with the Oculus, right? Why they are trying to be forward thinking, and they are spot on, right? They see what Epic has done with Fortnite. They see what um, Roblox has done, right? And they know that the next step of that is going to be on chain, right, in a secure manner. But and they also know that they can position themselves to be the number one. They can position themselves to be the Google, right, of Web 3. Um,
It, well, it all boils down to connecting people. That's what the metaverse is about. It's about connecting people, and then the other part is to make it more immersive, right? So, talking to somebody through a phone call versus talking to somebody through a video chat, or even one step back, versus talking to somebody through written text, right? Every time we have these technological developments, I can go talk to my relative I haven't seen in years on video chat, and it
right.
feels like I'm there, and it makes that connection that much more meaningful. But I don't
Right.
need to travel halfway across the country or halfway across the world to see that person and get that connection. And I think that's really what the metaverse is about. And then yeah,
Absolutely.
the social network aspect is like I actually think Discord's a good version of it because Discord's a place where I could talk to thousands of people all at once. I could have individualized conversations with people, have really good mediums in which I could connect with people. I could
Yeah.
talk to you on voice chat, video chat. I could put my pictures in there. I feel like I could express myself more in Discord than I could in previous mediums, which is why I love it. And the more immersive that gets, the more connected we become with other people, and like that's the real beauty of it.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I totally agree with that.
I you had we had a funny Twitter comment here. Spacebuds better not drop any land scams. This person had a very strong opinion on just these new land plots. I don't know if you have any thoughts on this.
I mean, that's kind of what we were talking about, right? Is like understanding that there is a little there's a pie, and that pie gets divided up the same way as a marketplace that we know, right? Like JPEG Store versus CNFT.io, right? There is a pie, it gets split up. The best platform wins, right? The thing that does the thing the best. Now, things can do things differently, or like applications can do things differently, such as a social version of a metaverse, like Clayverse or Cardano Village, versus like a activity version and gamified version of a metaverse, such as Cornucopias and Cardania, right? Like they can do different things, and there could be enough of the pie available to have one or two like successful platforms share that sector. But to expect that every single metaverse is going to work. Is just that's fool's gold. You're chasing the dragon on a lot of things. You really need to do your research, know your dev teams, and invest wisely, right? Because these are ultimately companies that are structuring themselves to be a long-term player. But if they don't have legal, how are they going to be a long-term player? If they don't
Mhm.
have um, a docs team, how do you have confidence in their ability to deliver? You have to think a little bit more traditionally, really, uh,
Yeah.
in space now, because we're getting to critical mass. We're getting to the point where things are going to start changing.
Well, and like if I'm starting up a lemonade stand, right, and I'm like, hey, I make some good lemonade. You have a sip, and you're like, dude, this is good lemonade. It's like, yeah, 25 cents. The problem is I don't got some money. I need some help buying some lemons. All right, I'm not gonna overqualify you for a lemonade stand. You need $10 for a lemonade stand. Cool. It's a different story if I say, hey, I'm gonna start a tech company. All right, now the bar is raised a little bit. I'm gonna be like, all right, what are your tech chops? Like, have you been in tech? No, no, no. I just been running a lemonade stand. Okay, I probably should invest my money in you, but let's say you do have a background in that. All right, now I'm gonna say, hey, I'm gonna start a brokerage up. I'm gonna start this new bank up. I never been in banking in my life. I've never started a business in my life. How much confidence do you have in me? Or, hey, I don't want to tell you who I am. Actually, I don't feel comfortable with that, but you should invest in my bank anyways. And
Yeah,
it, as the bar raises for what you're promising to deliver, so should be the expectations that you
right.
have of those creators, right? So it is relative. If you are making an art project and your artsbomb.com and you don't want to dox yourself, I think that's okay, right? I don't
Yeah,
think you have to. But when you start making these big delivery promises that do require actual skills and experience, it's a reason we doxed ourselves because we're making big promises, right?
yeah.
But I'd like to think that if you go to my LinkedIn, you look at your history, you look at my history, you look at Big PT's history, you could see, oh, wait, these guys actually can deliver on some of the stuff that they're saying because they have done this in their careers, right? And I wouldn't promise anybody a metaverse. I know that even with my good resume. So definitely you gotta care about the teams, and you can't just trust people's word for it. And just make sure you don't get fooled by a good picture too, because I know that happens.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. So I wanted to maybe touch. I know you have to go soon, Gub. Actually, talking about like go to market strategies, that's another thing. We had a couple interesting ones come out. We have Epoch Art and then Free Roam Marketplace. I haven't bought anything, but I've checked out both marketplaces. Actually, I lied. I used Epoch Art and it was super smooth. And I think that one's the Mutant NFTs, and then Free Roam is Ghost Chains. They have like a revenue share model, and I'm just curious, like, what your thoughts or how this dialogue turned out that you had.
I just did some napkin math on a Twitter post. The Mutants creator actually confirmed that that the napkin math was correct. That basically, like, through its first month, it did $400,000 in sales, which is or 400,000 ADA in sales. I'm sorry, which is great. That's fantastic. Um, and the way the revenue breaks down is that the NFT holders get a split of the fees, which is 2%, of which they get 50% of that, which then breaks down to, if you do the math, 0.36 ADA per NFT that you. And so, just looking at the yield aspect alone, and not factoring in the art or any other project incentives, just the yield, um, I find it hard to place certain valuations on that aspect alone, right? Because that's going to play a factor into owning some things, just as like staking or or utility would. Um, but it should be looked at in a realistic lens, right? It shouldn't be thought of like, oh, this platform that's going to launch is going to instantly dominate the market, and then we're going to take over the entire portion that JPEG.store owns, just like they did the CNFT.O. And right, like that shouldn't be the mentality when you're looking at these things. What should be the mentality is like realistically, okay, if I were able to take 3% of the market in the first month, what that would that be? Realistically, over time, if I was able to take 20% of the market, right? Like, what
Hmm.
does that yield? And evaluate it from that perspective, right? I think too often we evaluate utility based on this like idea of grandeur
Yeah.
instead of like the worst case scenario or a realistic scenario.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, I think, and I've used, or I've seen both platforms, and I think they did a good job in their development work. So
Yeah,
definitely strong there. But it's same thing when we created our token in our tokenomics, right? I didn't build our tokenomics to plan for, oh, if this thing goes to the moon, here's what's gonna happen, right? It was,
right.
if this thing it does something that's very realistic, here's the upside. If this thing doesn't do as well, here's the reality, right?
Right.
And I think it's okay to make a bet on something because before these were developed, you had a chance to invest in that project, and you maybe got in at a lower price thinking, oh man, this team's going to be capable of building this cool thing. And so there's a little bit of risk in that, but yeah, you're right, you can't just make an assumption that, oh, this thing's going to be automatically successful. And I,
Right.
I, I work for a pretty successful company, and we roll out new products all the time, and we're number one in our space at what we do. But as we expand, we put a lot of money and effort into things where we're very, very qualified to do them. We have the resources, we have the people. They don't always work like we think they're going to work because it's a very competitive market out there. Some people kind of like have their foothold in. ADP is a funny one for me because I'm sure if anybody's ever had a job out there, you probably get paid through ADP as your log in log out system. But like I use their platform and it sucks every time I use it as a user. But they're still king of the castle, and you can't like take them down because like they own the market and they're so embedded and so deep into it that you could come out with some new technology, have all the bells and whistles, and even that's not enough, right? So
Yeah.
I'm not just gonna sell my house and all my assets so I could put everything in the next ADP competitor because I don't like their platform and I saw this other one and it's so much slicker because there is a lot more to market dynamics than a lot of us can understand. And yeah, I think comparing what happened to JPEG Store and CNFTIO is a big difference, right? That's like comparing um, you know, I don't know, shoes to cars or something.
Right.
There was a
Yeah.
big difference there in terms of the usability. I mean, we used to have to wait 24 hours for people to send us stuff.
Well,
And
yeah,
there was
and
no
no
royalties too
smart,
for
no
creators.
royalties, no smart
Yeah.
contract integration, constant issues on CNFT.io, and that's not to say like that's not the dog on CNFT.io. CNFT.io is a great platform, and they're making strides every day. It's just this is what happens just in traditional technology. You can look at it like Yahoo versus Google or MySpace versus Facebook, right? First to market doesn't mean you're going to be the one that wins. First to market means that you have the onus is on you, and that you're leading the race, and the onus is on you to stay ahead of the curve, right? A project can come out right now that probably had like um, let's say multi-sig transactions and batch transactions where you can purchase multiple items from a single seller in a single transaction. Like that would be an innovation to what CNFT.io offers
Yeah.
for specifically like power users of CNFT.io and JPEG.store and all these marketplaces that exist today. But none of these projects are bringing that. They're bringing a lot of usability and like functional and tangible ease of use. But is that enough to take a significant portion out of JPEG.store to make the yield match the current valuations of these projects? I don't know. I really don't. It's why I pose the question. Is I want to know what everyone thinks, right? I want to know how the community sees this. If they see this as um, like a really good strong hook, or if this is more of like just some added benefit, right? Like a plus, right? Like I
Yeah.
bought this for these things plus. Um, so I don't know. Tell me how you feel.
Yeah, I'll end it here. And what I love about this is I was having some struggles with JPEG Store one day, and so that's why I went to Epoch Art, and it worked very smooth. And just stuff happens, whatever. I'm not gonna hold it against anybody or say this is better than that. But I love that this is an open competitive space,
Right?
and
Yeah.
it's the same thing that happens in the commercial world, right? This is as much as people might dog on capitalism, this is capitalism at its best.
Right.
And when one platform is stepping up their game, because like I love how free roam has the analytics on there. I thought that was a really good idea and something I want to see from other marketplaces. I go to JPEG, so I see some analytics on there, right? And so what's going to happen is the bar keeps raising and raising and raising. Maybe a new competitor comes in and raises the bar a whole different tier, kind of like JPEG Store did, and that might help them eclipse the market. But ultimately, we on the other end as the consumers, we get the benefit. And the beauty, I was actually using this analogy to my friend the other day, is if I use actually, this happened to me. I used Robinhood and I made some money on Robinhood, and then they did the whole freeze account, and where I couldn't sell any of my assets, and I lost tens of thousands of dollars instantly
Yeah.
because they did that to me. And I was just like, F Robinhood. I hate this platform, and I wanted to leave Robinhood. In order to leave Robinhood because they own my money, what I had to do is I had to sell all my stock. Probably takes a week to do that, like get the stock, put it in your bank account. That's 1 week of not being in the market. If the market in my investments 2x during that time, I don't get any of that action. So I don't really want to do that. And then once I get out of Robinhood, I put the money in my bank account. I want to switch to E-Trade or Fidelity. Then I got to set up my Fidelity account, put my money in there, and then God forbid I pick another bad platform and I got to get out. Cycle continues. The beauty of this whole blockchain crypto thing is when I say F you to Robinhood, they don't own my money. I own my money. I just go log into another platform and boom, my money's transferred, right? And that's the beauty of this, and that's why these companies are going to be held to a high standard because nothing's protecting them, right? If one day we decide I don't like this platform, there's not this crazy process to withdraw and exit the platform because you never owned my assets. You just gave me a medium to transact my assets. And so I think what's going to happen is we're going to have rapid innovation because I used ADP as an example earlier. People don't leave ADP because it's so damn embedded into their system that they don't want to have to unwind it. And I do think that's kind of the difference here is I can exit your system without having to do all this extra work. And if I find a platform I like better, I'll just go to it. So you better up your platform right away because like I'm not committed to anything. That's the beauty of this whole blockchain and decentralization.
Yeah. Absolutely. Couldn't agree more.
All right. Last thing, I just want to talk about wellness. It's a big part of our community. Want to end on a story because I actually used to be a real estate agent, or sorry, not real, a life insurance agent when I was 20, 21 years old, so very early in my life. And I worked particularly with anybody 65 and older. And sometimes I would go to somebody's house. They were 65 years old, and they weren't living life. They were in just a horrible state. They couldn't do anything physically, mentally, not the best, and you could just tell they were kind of like at the end of their life. And I'd meet 85-year-olds, And I mean, they look like they could run a marathon, and they look like they were healthier than I was at the time. And when I looked at these two people, that was a 20-year age gap between them. You know, one person's 65, one person's 85. That's about the age I was at the time, was 20 years old. And I took something from that, and it's the importance of taking care of yourself and your body, because when you're young, it's something you take for granted. When you're older, it's everything. And, you know, let's say you make billions of dollars doing this crypto thing. If you don't have your health in the long run, none of that's going to matter. And it's something that I think a lot of us in this space just need to remind ourselves that you got to have that balance, right? That's why we have mental wellness, physical wellness, financial wellness. Those are the three big buckets. I think most of us are focused so much on financial wellness, and I've been horribly guilty of doing that because it's what I enjoy. You know, a lot of us do enjoy money, right? We love making those big gains, those 100x gains or whatever. But none of that means anything if you don't have your health. And like I said, the difference between a healthy 65-year-old and an unhealthy 65-year-old is night and day. A lot of us are a little bit on the younger adult side in this space. But the older you get, the harder it is to maintain. So that's just advice I have to everybody. Be mindful of your health is your wealth. Yeah, I'm sure most of you guys have said that. And also, your physical health, your physiology does affect your psychology. And a lot of times, I think that's something that people overlook is, you know, it in order to focus on your mental health, there are obvious things that you guys could do, from, you know, having conversations, having dialogues, talking to professional counselors. But another thing that people underestimate is actually taking care of your body can help with that mental health, because it gives you some control back in your life, and it actually does affect the chemicals. And so that just something I wanted to share. It is, again, it's a big part of our project. Is we just want to make sure that we are promoting better lifestyles out there. So anybody who's listening to this, if you're physically able to do it, like if you haven't done some type of physical activity this week, you know, go do like 10 push-ups, or do like a 15-minute walk outside, because you know, when you do make all those gains on your NFTs, you'll have a couple extra years to enjoy them. So I really appreciate you, Gub, joining us. Awesome first fireside chat. I know me and you literally could talk for hours and hours.
I think we did talk for over an hour.
We talked for over an hour. Yeah, we're at an hour 2 minutes. If anybody wants to join us ever in the future, we plan on doing these more frequently. We just want to make sure you guys have project updates, talk a little bit more about the space, and yeah, just share a little bit more on better wellness. But with that, I thank you again for joining us, and appreciate you, Gub Jub, for the conversation.
Yeah, man, always down to chat, and see y'all next time.
All right, see ya.